It has been a very short evolutionary leap from the Stepford Wives of movie fiction to real-life female sex robots for hire now in brothels in Asia and in Europe, and which will soon be for sale with AI, speech and movement, according to a new report. Popular culture has long been rehearsing the arguments against. For example,
Billy, do you want to walk your dog?
No thanks, Mom. I'd rather make out with my robot.
Billy, do you want to get a paper route and earn some extra cash?
No thanks, Dad. I'd rather make out with my robot.
Billy, do you want to come over tonight? We can make out together.
Gee, Mavis, your house is across the street. That's an awfully long way to go for making out.
Did you notice what went wrong in that scene? Ordinarily, Billy would work hard to make money with his paper route. Then he'd use the money to buy dinner for Mavis, thus earning a slim chance to perform the reproductive act. But in a world where teens can date robots, why should he bother? Why should anyone bother?
why indeed, and beyond that, is it acceptable to use so-called sex bots to redirect dark behaviour from humans to robots, or will they have a reinforcing effect? For example, if sex robots could be programmed to put up resistance to a sexual aggressor who then rapes the robot, will it make it more likely that his next victim is human? These are questions that are addressed in a new report by Responsible Robotics, which discusses controversial suggestions about the use of robots in sex therapy for the prevention of crimes. To discuss this, I'm joined by Dr. Kathleen Richardson, Senior Research Fellow in the Ethics of Robotics, and Nichi Hodgson, a journalist and author who's documented the ethics behind the porn industry for Radio 4, and she also previously worked as a dominatrix. Good evening to you both. What basically is the issue about a robot who is capable of giving someone sexual pleasure?
Well, I think, you know, people get confused with the idea that somehow a robot is like a vibrator. You know, a vibrator is something that you rub on your body part. And I don't really have a problem with objects that you rub on your body parts.
But they could be any shape, presumably. They could be the shape of a female person.
Well, no, because that's the point, you see. When we're talking, we're not just talking about something you rub on your genitals anymore. We're talking about something that has a complete humanoid female form.
But it's still a machine.
It's still a machine, but it's piggybacking off ideas within the porn industry.
Do you take the same view that actually it's essentially pornographic?
No, I don't. So one thing I would say about a vibrator is, isn't it in a way objectifying a male body part and actually even more dehumanising because it's not the whole male model it's presenting when you're using it?
Yeah.
But on the part is that the standard view is that if it gives you pleasure and isn't doing no harm to anybody, you would take the view that it's okay.
I would take the view that it's okay, but what I don't like very much is the fact that these robots are modelled as women, primarily for male pleasure. You know, it's something that we've known about the porn industry forever, that it's men making material that satisfies male pleasure, which is now shifting. So what we don't want to do with sex bots is find ourselves 20, 30 years down the line having not addressed the issue of women remaking the technology to suit them. We need to let women remake it now.
Or indeed a women's place in society. And I wonder, when you actually read this report, and we know that robots with AI and can speak and react and so forth are coming very, very soon. What do you think about the idea that you could have a robot programmed to be resistant to sex, and then what might happen is there may be a scream, or that the robot may be hit 3 or 4 times and gives in? Now, that essentially is mimicking rape. Is that more likely, in your view, to encourage human-to-human rape, or in fact be a way of deflecting?
Well, I think we have to look at the fact that we're even asking this question.
But it's,
right?
It's going to be a reality soon.
The point about sex robots is they're really a product of the porn industry. So what we've created with pornography is this complete detachment between sex and intimacy, sex and relationship. We've turned it into a commodity. So now we're getting young boys at the age of 9 watching pornography, young girls turning up at clinics wanting to have labial plastic.
But that may well be so. And of course it's true.
And that's the generation that are going to be using these sex robots.
But what I'm suggesting to you is that there is a difference between, as it were, an inanimate object, or one that is created now for the actual purpose of mimicking a rape victim.
Yeah, well, I talked to a lot of survivors of child sexual abuse and rape, and I think they would be insulted to think that you can compare something about their experience with a doll. However, it's going to be part of the fantasy world that's being created
Nichi,
around for men.
These dolls are coming, and what would you say that actually they can be programmed and actually to make verbal responses?
Well, we have to make a decision about whether we use that for good or bad, don't we? Like we always do with technology. So there's something to be said for allowing these dolls to work with people that have committed rape in order to kind of rehabilitate them. There's some research...
But it could be an accelerator, couldn't it? It could be the idea that once they have done this many times with a supposed inanimate object and had absolutely no pushback from it or no censure, that actually they may go out and actually rape humans.
So they found, some academics that have been studying VR technology with response to people with paedophilic desires, for example, have tried to predict a model based on reactions to certain images to see if these people will offend again or hurt children. So there's the possibility for using this technology to predict, and at the moment there isn't enough research to know one way or the other whether it will encourage a behaviour that's already redolent in somebody or whether it can actually incur a behaviour. It's a bit like the debate we've had around video nasties and around porn, the idea that whatever you view will give you the idea to go and repeat it, which just isn't true for lots of people.
I mean, this is outrageous to possibly suggest such a thing, that we can experiment with young children and test out some product in society that's going to make someone very wealthy.
I haven't said anything about experimenting with young children.
In order for perhaps paedophiles not to have some paedophilic experience.
So at the moment,
I think there should be an absolute ban on...
Well, can I just say that this is the next thing, because actually we do actually know that there is, as it were, a child sex bot. It's out there already. It's on the market, not in this country. And what this report is saying, that these should definitely be outlawed.
Yeah.
Is that your view?
I think this is good, and they're only just catching up with what the Campaign Against Sex Robots said 2 years ago. We said there should be a complete ban on child sex dolls and sex robots, because children cannot protect themselves. It's for us as adults to do that. Yes.
I would agree with that. It's certainly not for any kind of pleasurable use, but there is some evidence to suggest that they could be used for therapeutic use, and that has to be researched more thoroughly, as I say, by these researchers that are already doing it in Canada. They're using VR technology, simulating images of children to try and test out whether these offenders will reoffend.
Thank you both very much indeed.